So we're making this video because we wanted to acknowledge that a lot of stuff happened last week, a lot of violence, um, deaths, brutality, police brutality, and it's still happening. And we wanted to tell you what we're thinking in the hopes that this will help somehow with the worries, the fears. We can't take away hurt and pain, and we know a lot of you are feeling that right now. So we hope that this maybe helps you to feel some clarity and some light, and look towards action pieces that can help you to navigate these sort of scary times.
Absolutely. And I think, right, like neither one of us are Black, right? Like we both identify very differently. But I think that making this video is incredibly important because we need to recognize that this discussion of anti-Blackness needs to be disrupted in multiple communities. And we kind of wanted to reach out to y'all and kind of be vulnerable and say, you know what, like, what can we do as allies to the Black community, as non-Black folks?
And one of the first things that I think comes to mind from experience is the need to not center ourselves. When we see things happening, when we see people's complaints, or certain things might trigger us to think, well, that doesn't happen to me, right? Or I don't see it that way. And I think it's important to remember, like, first of all, it's not about you.
No, it's it's definitely something that I've seen a lot in like well, specifically like white communities, where the acknowledgement of the Black experience in America um, is kind of not even acknowledged, and it's not necessarily even, well, if this happened to them, well then my ancestors also experienced oppression because they were Irish, right? Like
Mhm.
that's not the point. That's
Okay.
not the point of this space, of this movement. um, and yeah, so when we say not to center ourselves, it means that like our experiences, while valid, they are not the point of this movement. The point of this movement is Black Lives Matter. We need to focus the discussion on Black lives.
Right. And as you mentioned, we're not Black. And my identity as a Latina, as a mom, as a daughter, as a sister, like, I'm in a weird position, um, because of certain things that have happened in my life, um, that make it extra confusing and difficult, but that's still not the point, like, um, but I do want to share some of the things that that come to mind that I think might help with some of the same things that you're going through. Um, for example, like, I have family members that are um, undocumented. I have super religious, like, conservative family members. Um, I have family members that are police, you know. I have a family member that works for Amazon. And meanwhile, I'm a teacher. So there's a lot of things that are fighting, like different viewpoints always within my own family. And it can cause a lot of anxiety of, like, what to think, what to do, what to say. And so I hope that if any of that resonates with you, that, like, what we do, or what I do might help you also. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, as a white teacher in a, Latinx and predominantly like Black community, um y'all know I think about this a lot, and especially when we were reading Dear Martin, these same events came up as we were reading this book. And y'all, I'm angry. I'm angry, and I want white people to be angry as well. Um, and I'm tired of people shifting the narrative. Well, look at the violence of the protesters. No, look at the violence of the police force that actually have violated, killed Black bodies since the beginning of this country, right? And yeah, moving forward as a white teacher, I feel like I need to be outspoken about this outrage and try to be an ally to my students, to my friends, to the Black community, in every way possible. Um, so that's where I'm coming from, is being intentional with my privilege and how I use it, but also just being outspoken, disrupting comfort in white spaces, you know? So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you for doing that. And thank you for sharing. Um, I will put it out there, like if you have specific opinions, like, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? Like, that's a conversation that we'd love to have with y'all. If, but only if you're interested. So feel free to email us or DM us if you want to hear more about our thoughts on certain things. But I want to say that right now, maybe some of you are feeling helpless because, like, I'm feeling helpless, right? Like, I can't go protest because I have a baby that depends on me for food and like having a job. And so, what are the things that I can do? Or one of the things that I can do is to reach out to my friends, particularly my Black friends. And that can be hard if you don't know how to start a conversation. And that's, I think, the hard step, right? How do you start a conversation with somebody, especially one like as difficult as this? And what I have found works for me is saying, I don't know what to say, but I'm here for you if you want to talk. Um, or if you need anything, let me know.
Yeah, being vulnerable, and just kind of acknowledging, like, hey, like I know lots happening. What's up?
Yeah.
Um, and I completely support that. I also wanted to bring up how we could, process or move forward. Social media, y'all. And I've actually seen a few of your stories on Instagram, and I know that a lot of y'all are very in it, right? Like you're posting things that are anti-racist, right? Like you want to be part of this movement. Um, keep doing it. That's all. Like that. That's it. Like keep doing it. Like keep reposting things that demonstrate allyship. Keep up with news sources, and not just like the three main ones: CNN, MSNBC, Fox, right? Like educate yourself, right? Like and that's very important, right? And through social media, and I think as far as allyship and how that is being redefined and what that looks like moving forward, social media is something that was non-existent 20 years ago.
Mhm.
But we are at the perfect point in history where social media can make waves. So
Mhm.
make waves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially since with the quarantine, most of us still can't leave our houses for things, right? So, um, social media is a great way of connecting and showing up. I also think, like you all know, that sometimes both of us process through art and drawing. And so, um, try to put your thoughts, your fears, your anxieties into some sort of creative piece, just like we're doing for COVID-19, you can do for um, Black Lives Matter. And like, it doesn't even have to be your art. Like, you could promote and amplify Black voices as well. So, looking for art and finding things that show what you want to say through art is also really important.
Mhm.
And to do that, you might have to research, right?
Absolutely. And I think educating yourself is probably, I mean, this is, from a very biased perspective as teachers, education has the ability to transform the future societies. As you educate yourself on Black issues, on, white supremacy, I just, want to be very intentional when I say don't lean on your Black friends to educate you.
Mhm.
The Black experience and Black communities, right? Like, God, right? Like they're in a space, right, where honestly, as a white person asking one of my Black friends, hey, can you tell me about, that might be triggering, right? That like I do represent to a lot of folks kind of this system of white supremacy. So as a white person, I'm not going to take that personally because um, but I am going to educate myself through articles, through podcasts, through readings. And I actually have a list that I'm posting on Google Classroom. Maybe some of y'all have seen it, but it has anti-racism resources, it has podcasts, it has books, it has articles, and all of them are linked for you. So this is going on Google Classroom. It also doesn't just talk maybe about the Black experience, but I know that there's also uh, allies and resources for Muslims, for Asians, and for Latinx folks as well. So yes, I will be putting this on Google Classroom. Just
Awesome.
scroll, pick a random article, right?
Yeah.
But don't lean on your Black friends to educate you. That now's not the time. It's not the space. It's not their job, right? Like it's your job to
Yeah.
educate yourself.
Um, and it's also our job sometimes to educate our families. If you have the space, if you have the ability, um, it can be a really impactful change. For example, in my case, um, as some of you heard, like I have a very conservative religious side of the family. And um, in the beginning, it was like, well, we immigrated and and like, the conversations that I've had range from like unproductive to like small little nuggets of hope. And I think that's where you have to start. Start with, if you're hearing something from us that's different from what you're hearing at home or from certain family members, then maybe start with the family member you think might be most open um, to might be more open to, to hearing from you. In my case, it was my mom, right? And so this started years ago. And I started with conversation. Well, what do you think? And getting to know her opinion and where it came from. And then going back to educating yourself, I had to educate myself on like why that wasn't the right way of looking at things. Then, I guess, few years down the road, I have this opportunity to now have these conversations based on research, based on data. And not only that, I can send my mom some articles, like short ones, videos, Instagram posts, um, Twitter posts that highlight the need um, to defund police, to defend Black lives, that prove that systemic racism is a real thing, right? And that show like the anti-Blackness in Latinx communities. So that doesn't happen in one conversation. It's going to take a really long time, and it's going to take gentle um, pushing. And so, if you're like me and you've been going up against family members and in these conversations, just know that um, we appreciate it. Humanity appreciates it, and to keep doing it and don't give up. And it's needed, right?
It is necessary. And I think that that is going back to the beginning of this video, right? Where um, having conversations with friends, creating space that specifically addresses like how can we be allies in like to the Black community right now. And I mean, I'm not even going to get into the conversations that I have with white people. It's too triggering, and I'm a flip a table if that. So
Mhm.
but the final thing I will say is, especially, um, you know, with privilege, with my privilege and what I want to do with it without centering myself in this conversation, right, is um, just always bring it back to this discussion is for Black lives. It is to disrupt the continuation of anti-Blackness in this country. And yeah, let's get going. Let's do this, right? Like whew, let's do it.
I think that's it. And again, we're here for you via IG, email. Let us know if you have any other questions or if you want to discuss or know how to discuss certain things. We're happy to support you with that.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, we love you.
We love you.
Peace be with you.
Mm-hmm.